Hey everybody, it is September 22nd, back again for episode 7 of Tacet Thoughts. With me today is Chris Nadeau, as always.
Say I wasn't fired yet.
You're on probation, for sure. And today with us is, somebody that I think is like maybe one of the coolest people I've had the pleasure of meeting.
There's no maybe to it, come on.
There's no
Y'all
maybe.
need to get out.
So he is. We actually met this dude while Chris and I were at Commerce. We were all at Texas A&M University Commerce together, and he went on to do a master's at SMU. For those that aren't Texans, that is Southern Methodist University, Cox School of Business, a really good school, in strategy and entrepreneurship. And he also did a master's in arts administration while he was there, and also got to study in Milan at University of Bocconi. He's a fantastic piano player, and I feel like he knows more about art and life and traveling than anyone.
That's a lie.
Than anyone my age, at least. So welcome, James Michael Williams. Dude, how's it
Thank
going?
you. Oh man, it's going great. How are you guys this evening?
We're good.
Not good. Chris saw me open up a Shiner Bock a few minutes ago, and it just exploded everywhere. And I just ran and had to grab like a rag, and it was all fiasco.
Oh man.
Well, cool, dude. So what are you up to right now, James? Where are you at in career and life and all that jazz?
Man, that's a loaded question.
Dude, I feel
Right off
like
the bat.
I'll give you the simplest answer, and the simplest answer is I really don't know. But a more complicated answer would be that I'm in Tyler right now with family. I graduated in May, and I moved back home to kind of save money and make sure I get the job that I actually want to start my career in. So I've been here applying for jobs, doing interviews, and waiting for the right opportunity. So
dude,
that's me.
I feel that, man. I feel like everyone we've talked to has been like, so what are you doing right now? Or how'd you get to where you are now? It's always the same. It's just like, dude, I just figured it out as I went along. There is no plan. There is no path you follow that's already laid out. You just like figure it out day by day almost.
Yeah. They don't tell you that in undergrad. They should.
They really should.
Yeah.
Yeah. Life kind of kicks you in the butt when that first happens.
Yep.
Oh, man. Dude, so this is a total tangent, and it's, but it's not even related to anything, but I just saw it pop up on social media, and I just had to, like, bring it up because it was so weird. So have you heard about the Kimberly Thompson Beyonce thing?
No.
So Kimberly Thompson is, she's a drummer, and she's Beyonce's drummer. And basically, to sum it up, she's really, really good. Kimberly Thompson's a great drummer.
Okay.
She's played with all these jazz and R&B folks. She's a part of Beyonce's all-female band Sugar Mama. She has a music education thing on YouTube. She does like all this cool stuff. But I guess she's now filed a restraining order against Beyonce for practicing like witchcraft, and like it says Beyonce is doing like sexual molestation spells on her and like tapping her phones and getting into her bank account, which I feel like witchcraft. Yeah, I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot, man.
Yeah, it just kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, just the idea of filing a restraining order against Beyonce is wild enough.
Oh yeah. And then
we should address. I mean, addressing each one of those accusations. She's stealing her money from her bank account. Did she say that?
She's accusing
or tapping into her bank.
Yeah, accusing Beyonce
man.
of getting in her bank account.
Beyonce don't need that girl's money.
She sure doesn't. No way.
Oh man.
Man,
Anyway, sorry.
No, it's good. I guess. Uh-oh. What is that?
We hearing that?
Yeah, it's weird. Huh, it stopped.
I wonder if that's not me, is it?
It's probably Beyonce, guys.
It's
Beyonce.
Oh man, we saw. Oh man. Okay, I'm a believer now. Okay, Beyonce, you're good. Kimberly's in the wrong. You do you. Just keep going with it.
Yeah,
Are
we'll
we
keep
still
going
talking
with
about
it.
percussion?
We're talking
Still
about
talking
Beyonce.
Beyonce.
Have you heard the Beyonce people filing restraining orders against her for casting witchcraft?
Yeah.
Oh shit, yeah. I would let Bay throw some spells on me.
So we're definitely not going to cut this part out because this has gotten too good. For anyone that's not in the loop, Chris has, I think Beyonce summoned him away. Chris is gone, and now his wife Emily is here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. And now Chris is back. Chris has Beyonce. He did his 70 years of servitude under Beyonce's witch spells, and now Chris is back.
Yeah.
It's good. It was good. It was a good time. It was a great time.
Good time. Wow. Hot takes by Chris. Sign me up, dadgummit.
Yeah, sorry, I just saw that pop up like an hour ago. I was just like, first, Beyonce does not need her money. Yeah.
No. The idea of Beyonce practicing witchcraft, though, I don't know. After that whole album with like Jay-Z, maybe she's just going through some stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe it's her Kanye moment.
Yeah. They all have to have a Kanye moment.
Everybody has to have a Kanye moment.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. I guess they asked her for a response, and she talked to the reporter like in the third person. Like she was saying, like, "Well, Beyonce did this." Like Beyonce is saying that Beyonce, the stage presence, like they're two different people. And now I'm just, oh man, I don't know what's going on.
Hey man, the art didn't got to her.
Yeah.
All that creating, man. It does something to your brain if you're not careful. You got to balance that out with some real honest stupidity. Drummer ain't getting enough stupid in her life, man.
I got a lot of that.
Yeah, I'm out of balance. I need more art. I need less of The Office.
Yeah, see.
Well,
we
anyway,
all have our thing.
That's right. Well, that's. I don't know what's that's going to. I mean, I'm sure it's going to turn into nothing. Like you can Google search the restraining order. It's like public knowledge now. But I feel like she threw in the witchcraft things just to like, all right, this will like spice it up a little bit. Because there was one thing in there about accusing her of taking artistic merit. So I feel like it's a very simple thing. Like maybe she did some sort of, I don't know, drummed on a track and didn't get the proper royalties or payment, and now she's trying to get that out of her. Which I don't blame.
Yeah. Man.
Well, man. Anyways, crazy world.
Yeah, it's a crazy world. It's hard to drum for Beyonce when you got a restraining order on her too. So
That's
I
true.
guess she's out of a gig too.
I guess so.
I'm open. I'm jobless right now. I mean, I'm not jobless, but I mean, I will be jobless for that gig.
Yeah, fair. Yeah. I mean, I don't even know how to drum, but I'd figure it out. I mean, I'd do it.
Yeah.
You can play piano. Can you get one of those patches that has like the drum sounds?
Yes.
Just all the G's are bass drums, all the C's are snares.
As long as they have it all written out for me.
You're good.
Give me about 6 months to practice. I can figure it out.
Well, dude, James, man, I feel like you've traveled the world more than most. Like, where all have you been? It's like an impressive list.
Yeah, well, I went to Asia. I did Korea or excuse me. I hate it when people are like, yeah, I went to Asia. I did Korea and China, and that's the dumbest thing anyone could ever say. I went to Seoul, and I got to spend some time in Seoul, and I got to go to Shanghai, and that was my first time in Asia. I did a lot of traveling in Europe, Spain, France, Andorra, Italy, Switzerland, Norway, Sweden, and Finland, and England. And most recently, I just got back from Iceland again, Canada, and spent a little bit of time in Mexico City, but not enough to count it. It was my first time south of Texas, though, so that's a pending trip for me. I think that's in Morocco. I've been to Morocco, too. I think that's about my list. I think I rolled through all of them.
Wow, dude, man, that's good. Do you think, and I already know what you're going to say, but do you feel like your travels have, like, been a significant impact on you as, like, an artist and a person?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's nothing like being in a country by yourself and like witnessing something that you think is the most beautiful or most perfect moment that you've ever experienced, and being alone. There's nothing like there's alone. Like, I'm alone right now sitting on this porch, and then there's 15,000 miles away from home, or 10,000 miles away from home, in a country where no one speaks your language, and sitting on a porch by yourself. Then there's that type of alone. And that type of alone, it really, I mean, you tap into something that you didn't know existed. And that's I think where it really, that changes your mind, that changes your art, that changes your whole perspective on everything. So yeah, I guess the answer to your question is, yeah, traveling has changed me, and it's changed the way that I view art and the world. So
wow. Would you recommend like like everyone, especially in those college, undergrad years, post-undergrad, just like put their money or apply for everything they can to like be able to just go like see the world?
Well, yeah, I think traveling is actually a lot cheaper than people think it is. And I wouldn't recommend that college students change anything to travel. I would just recommend they make traveling a priority. So we all got money, it may not be a lot, but if you can find some place to go. Mm-hmm. You can find some place to go for what little bit that you have. And to be honest with you, I mean, I'd honestly recommend that people that are in college just jump off the deep end. And if you've got minus $80 in your bank account, get on a plane and travel with minus $80 in your bank account. Because there's nothing like figuring it out when you don't have any options, or those are the best stories when you do stuff and you don't have any resources. So yeah, I'd recommend it. Yeah, absolutely. People should travel even when they don't feel like they can afford it.
Yeah, I've only, outside of like being inside the continental U.S. and traveling around there, the only places I've been internationally were Australia, which was great. And then actually, funny enough, 1 year ago today, I got back from Italy. But I remember like being able to figure out what's going on in a different country by yourself is it's nuts. Like, I mean, it was super like the first 12 hours, because I had to like land. I landed in Rome airport. And then I basically had to get across the country, which, I mean, it's Italy. It's not, I mean, it's smaller than Texas pretty much. Like, you can drive across Italy, faster than you can drive across Texas.
That's true.
But, yeah, it was basically like I had bought a bus ticket ahead of time, and then I showed up. Like, that bus apparently was no longer operating at that airport. So I'm like, all right, I've got, this much money in the currency. I know just enough Italian, and luckily they all speak English for the most part. But I was like, I know enough Italian to get like what I need to get, and just like the process of having to like figure it out and like figure out, where I'm going, and I'm trying to tell the people what city I'm going to, and then they're just like, what? Because I didn't pronounce it right. Like it was Pescara, but I kept saying Pescara.
Oh,
and
man.
they're just like, where? And I didn't think it was going to be that big of a change, but they just, I guess it was enough that they were like, man, I don't know where you're trying to go. But they eventually helped me and figured it out. And then it was just like, all right. And then I got to town, had to figure out how to get from that city to the next city over to the hotel. And it was just like, man, after doing something like that, it's like, nothing else seems like getting lost in downtown Dallas, and not being sure where you're going is like, it's whatever.
As long as you're not on foot.
Oh,
as long as you're not on foot.
Yeah.
I think I'd rather be lost in Rome at that point.
for sure.
Well, yeah, you can kind of walk to the other side of Rome.
Yeah.
And you cannot do that in Dallas.
No way.
Oh man.
Have you been
I'm
out?
interested.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, James.
No, I was going to ask you about Australia. I'm terrified of that continent, man. Everything will kill you. Did you see anything there that will kill you?
So check this out. Yeah, only twice.
Okay.
Which I was there for 2 weeks, so that's once a week. So that's like, I mean, that's like saying, okay, I saw a bear this week and I saw a bear last week. It's like, yeah, it's kind of spooky. But no, man, I tell you what, Australia and America, I feel like are the same country.
Are you
Like,
serious?
outside of, I mean, they drive on the other side of the road, and
Okay.
like, you know, there's a little bit of an accent difference, obviously, but like everybody kind of was cool, and it was like a very like I don't want to say it was like America because I feel like it was probably more the other way around. We're closer to them, but yeah, everybody's like just friendly, cool. Yeah, I mean, it's just really nice, and yeah, I had a great time. The only animals I did see, I saw a spider, which was like a large spider. And then who we were staying with, they're just like, oh yeah, it's no big deal, you know, that's like just a garden spider. I just like, whoa. No. A garden spider is like maybe the size of your palm. That thing's like the size of a small cat. Yeah. And,
I think.
but then,
go ahead, sorry.
And then the other thing we saw, we went to a sanctuary and saw kangaroos, and they were telling us like, yeah, you know, kangaroos are kind of like what we hear as deer in America. Like, they're kind of a nuisance and they're everywhere. And you'll be driving and you'll see them in the background.
No.
But yeah, we were just like, we didn't see any the whole time. And then the last night we were there, we went to a winery, and then we were driving back. Our buddy who lived there was driving us back, and he was just like, yeah, guys, that stuff's, you know, about kangaroos hopping out in the street. It just, you know, it doesn't happen. Right when he said it, 2 kangaroos hopped over the hood of the car. I was just like, I effing told you so. I knew there was kangaroos out in the wild.
That reminds me exactly of when Samuel Perzullo came to Commerce for his Masters. And so, like, because him and Lizzie, his wife Lizzie, they'd come from Brazil, remember? And so, I remember we were driving around that one day, and we were asking him, because he had been in Texas for a while, and it's East Texas, which is, you know, as we all three of us know, terrible. And but I remember he was talking. He's like, yeah, I was a little disappointed. You know, in Brazil, we think Texas and we think ranch and cowboys and like steer and all this other stuff and like horses, and nobody has that. And we were like in the car driving back to the school, going like, yeah, that's like just like a Hollywood stereotype. People don't really just ride horses. And as we were saying that, there were 2 kids just riding their horses down that highway in front of the university. Like, just right, and he just had the biggest smile. Like, really? But I was just like, oh, that was like the worst timing ever. But that was just Commerce, though. Those kids rode horses everywhere. I saw them every single day.
Oh yeah, I saw. I think at least twice I saw people on horses at the Taco Bell drive-thru or the McDonald's drive-thru. It's good stuff.
So I think what's funny is going back to that like idea of like Texas is a stereotype in Hollywood. After I've gone to play with the Cheyenne Symphony up in Wyoming a few times now, and like every time I go up there, like I think Wyoming fits the stereotype of Texas more than Texas does.
Interesting.
Like everything's kind of like that old like Wild West, like kind of open like ranch land style. You go into Cheyenne, and you remember how like in the 80s for some reason everything was either brown or orange?
Yep.
Like when you see those old TV shows, that's like Cheyenne.
I don't even know where Wyoming is. I know it's like it's to the left of Nebraska, to the west of Nebraska.
It's directly north of Colorado. So it's like a 45-minute drive from where I'm at. Okay. But it's not a lot of reason to go there unless you want to go see some pretty open spaces. And hopefully nobody's listening from Wyoming going, you know what, screw this Chris guy.
Yeah, right. No, we don't have any listeners from Wyoming. We might. If we do, I'm really sorry. Chris is already on probation.
I'm sorry you live in Wyoming. So we can say that. Again, we're all from... So we got I'm from Texarkana, which is like the most far east northeast corner of Texas. Caleb's from Paris, Texas, which has never been on the news for a good reason. And then James, you're from Tyler, right?
I'm from Marshall, which is even
Marshall, even deeper.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
We are Marshall.
No, but you're not.
I'm pretty sure that's a college, but okay.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Have you gotten to travel internationally, Chris? I don't think I've ever asked you that.
I've done just a little bit. I mean, it's not a lot. The only traveling I've done on my own was several years back. I actually went with I got to play with a group from Texarkana that was doing a little bit of a tour. They played as a choir, like a mass combined choir for I think it's Beethoven's Mass in C in Carnegie Hall.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to travel with that, doing a little bit of percussion, and then they took that same group over to Montreal, where the former director of the Texarkana Symphony, Maestro Marc-André Bougie, was from, where he had studied and did his undergrad and master's in composition and conducting. And so he took us home and we played there, did some more percussion, got to travel, and Montreal was a lot of fun. The only sad part was Cirque du Soleil and the Body exhibit were there, and nobody wanted to go to either one with me. So
that's hard.
I should have gone by myself. But other than that, the only real out-of-the-state traveling I've done was my wife and I's honeymoon. We wanted to travel. We didn't know where, so we did the stock. We'll just do like a 7-day cruise because that'll get us to a couple places pretty quick. The first one was actually kind of bunk. We stopped in Cozumel, and our reaction, because we're both ignorant to travel, we're like, we'll just hop off the boat and go to the beach. Because it made sense in our mind when we stopped in Cozumel and we got there. And then obviously they're not dropping us off at the beach. They're dropping us off in the port area where it's Little America, where they're like hamburgers and chicken strips. And for some reason, diamonds and cigars. Buy a lot of diamonds and cigars. And like, I have no money. And then we're like trying to get a cab to go to the beach. And then every cab was like, oh, that's going to be like $100. And we're like, it's like a 5-mile drive. No, it's not. Like one guy tried to give us the run around that he had to drive around the island, showing us on a map. And I was like, what about the road that just goes straight to the beach? We didn't go to the beach that day. We just kind of walked around, ate some food. Everybody was trying to hustle something on us because obviously we were Americans in the touristy area. We ate at Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville just because I thought it would be funny to eat there. It was terrible. Hated it. Best experience, though, was everywhere we went, Emily found a dog. Because she just does that. And there was a little tiny, it looked like the old Taco Bell Chihuahua, almost an exact replica. The sweetest little dog just sitting in the middle of the shopping area, of all these little shops. And it led us into a shop. That's apparently what it was trained to do. And we talked to this souvenir shop guy for half an hour who poured us free shots of tequila and just chatted with us. So that was fun. So the next place we went to was Belize. And that was actually a really fun one for two reasons. We went and saw some of the Mayan ruins, which is something we both always wanted to do. But we had plenty of time to kill, so we decided we're going to leave that touristy area because if somebody tried to sell us diamonds one more time, we were both going to go crazy. So we leave, and this was a fun experience for me because we talk about the idea of what you perceive people to be until you actually meet them, and so. We found we had walked away and we found this little market street where there's just a whole bunch of people with little stands set up, and it's a really poor country, and which was beautiful. But I realized even us we complain about I just finished my master's degree, I'm working at community college where I'm making maybe tens of dollars a week, and it's not the most extravagant living. But then I think about the fact is these people some of the houses didn't have roofs over them. Or they talked about boxes of cereal being a child's gift for their birthday. Wow. They really didn't have much, and they didn't complain a lot when we talked to them. They were just very happy and grateful for what they had. So it made me think about the fact that it's we struggle with bills month to month every now and then, or maybe I still can't buy that snare drum I want, or that I really want these mallets, but I have to hold off for a little bit. But that's man, I've still got a roof over my head, we got a bed, we've got all the things we could ever actually really need, and we live in northern Colorado, which, granted, it's super expensive and kind of hard to justify, but at the same time, it's I can walk out of my house and do a mountain hike up to a lake, and it's a 5-minute walk to the trail. But the other thing was, the funniest part was we were walking down the street, and I remember we both saw the same person at the same time and had two completely different reactions. And y'all both know Emily well enough to know how she would have reacted. I remember looking down the street, and at the very end was this very scary-looking Bond villain with like long dreads, like one eye. Sorry, just a second. So, yeah. So we had he had the long dreads, one eye, and he's like literally swinging a machete just down the end of the road. And I remember every red flag hit me. I was just like, we can't go that way. We can't go that way because we're clearly American tourists. This isn't going to end well. And Emily's just like happy going down the street, looking at all the colorful like tapestries people have, all this stuff. Like she just smiling at everybody. She goes, we're heading straight towards that guy, and I'm like, every bit of me wants to run because I'm terrified of the machete. And and so we go straight down there because she's following her nose at this point, and something smelled amazing. And we get down there, and it's like a little food booth, like plastic card table with buckets for seats, like painter's buckets. Wow. And it was like $5. We got this kind of like it was almost like Creole food from like southern Louisiana, like steamed barbecued chicken with fried red beans and rice and fried plantains. And the guy with the machete was selling coconuts full of rum, and turned out to be like the most delightful person we've ever met. Like I remember him like just chopping off the top of the coconut, handing it to me, and handing me the bottle of rum. And then I just like very nervously kind of poured like a little bit in there, and I was like, oh, thank you. And I hand it back to him. And then he's like, oh, no, and like pours out like half of the coconut and just dumps the rest of the bottle in there. And so, like $7, we get this amazing meal and like this coconut full of rum, which they were selling the same coconuts of rum like back at the port for like $25. But we got to talk with everybody, and they were super nice, and we were confused about the language they were speaking, which we found out was actually English. But it's the same way like Southern Creole French is in Louisiana, where it's just so like heavily like changed from like the what's the word I'm looking for? Just the accent and dialect of the area. Like that's the same thing there. They were speaking English, but we just had no idea what any of it meant. But again, it was just like, yeah, I remember walking down there and being like terrified of this guy, and then Emily being the carefree person she is that can make a friend with anybody, just like almost beeline straight to him and becomes best friends. And but it was a funny introspective moment for me when I was sitting there thinking, I was like, granted, I feel like there's a little justification in feeling those red flags of like a scary man swinging a machete down the road. I was just like, naturally, I don't think anybody wants to walk to that person. But like he turned out to be like one of the friendliest people we met on the entire trip. And then after that, we went to Roatan, Honduras, and had way too much alcohol on a beach. Finally
finally found your beach.
Yep. Right. Got to snorkel along like the world's second largest coral reef. Giant fish bigger than me swimming by. It was really weird. Wasn't a fan.
No, I don't do. It's thalassophobia. If anyone's heard of it, it's like the fear of not so much water and not so much it's like the unknown of the ocean. Oh, it's like those pictures of like people where there's the big cliff drop off underwater, like you go so far out to the ocean from a beach. And I was just like, no, I can't. And it's apparently one of the most common fears is that, and or the thoughts of being like next to a submarine underwater. Yeah, it's really interesting. Total tangent. But Chris is
speaking of.
Oh no, go ahead, James.
I was gonna say there was that weird like moment where like we did find the drop off of the coral reef, and like it was like a 50 or so foot drop, and that was like the weirdest, creepiest vibe over there. Like I couldn't handle that moment.
Speaking of a weird fact, I believe it's 95% of our oceans are unexplored.
Isn't that
crazy?
Yeah.
Wow. Is it really that much?
Yeah, it's that much.
Yeah, it's like an insanely high number. Because we just can't go low enough in certain parts. We just don't have like the ability. I just have a fear that there's something down there. I have like there's like the squid monsters down there that can like eat a ship or something.
Pacific Rim, like the movie's just waiting to happen. Well,
I wouldn't doubt it.
That's like similar to like, because I know there's a lot of people that talk about studying the ocean in terms of studying like space. And like, I'm always blown away when I hear people talk about like listening to like the NASA podcast or anything like that, and they say something along the lines of that they still think we know less than 1% about what there is to know of the known universe.
Yeah.
That's not including what the things we can't even imagine yet.
Yeah.
That just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Yes, man, it's scary. Chris was talking.
Here's a question for.
Oh, go ahead.
That?
Go ahead, James.
I had another question for Chris. In regards to honeymoons, would you do the cruise again?
Yes, and I will say there was one thing I should say about our honeymoon cruise is we did it during like the beginning of January, the off season.
Okay.
So it was affordable because we're poor, and there was a lot of people on the ship, but there wasn't a lot of people there. So like when we wanted to be around people, it was easy. But when we wanted to be to ourselves, that was also really easy too. So like for those 7 days, like especially coming from where we're still teaching, I was still teaching down in Plano. Just like the fact that we had our cell phones turned off for like a week, like they literally became cameras at that moment. And like we were just able to kind of be in our own little world. Like so we were out exploring the countries for those days. It was a fun way just to kind of travel quick to see multiple like cultures at once. But like I actually liked the cruise part more than I thought I would, just because like it was kind of nice to feel so disconnected. Like my favorite parts of the trip were us just like laying out on the deck and then just kind of watching the water go by and just seeing nothing off in the distance, watching the sunrise, the sunset. There was that magical moment where we finally saw dolphins playing in the waves behind the boat.
Oh, nice.
And like we were both like way too excited about it, I think, because we were trying to show it to everybody and nobody else cared. And we're like, don't forget, you guys, this is magical. This is like Disney in life. What's wrong with you? No, I would totally recommend it, and I would do it again too. Like we've actually talked about doing it again. It was as like maybe privileged like Western culture as that sounds like. I mean, that was something we never thought we would do, and we saved up for an entire year just because we didn't know what to do for our honeymoon. It just seemed like the thing we could do to travel the most.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're a Norwegian sales guy.
Oh yeah, Chris, are you working at like some Travelocity?
I never said the name of the cruise or anything.
He has not said the name of the cruise.
I'm not brand loyal. Do whatever you want. Live your own life. I don't know how much milk you want in your cereal.
30%.
No, it was a fun one.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's good. So on the terms of like travel, there's this really cool. They did an MBA study in 2014, so not too long ago, 4 years. But this 2014 study of MBA students at NSEED, which is a globally ranked MBA program that there's establishments all over the world. They're kind of all interconnected and they help each other out. But they found a link between students' multicultural engagement, which is the extent to which they adapted to and learned about new cultures when they studied abroad, and their integrative complexity, which is their willingness and capacity to acknowledge competing perspectives on issues. So in like the basic layman's terms, that's saying students who became highly engaged in other cultures during their international program had an easier time handling and holding multiple conflicting views on the same issue, and their interactions with cultures gave them a better perspective. And then additionally, there was a further link between multicultural engagement and the number of job offers that those students received post-degree, kind of showing that companies value perspective. And they went on and they did a second little study where they had students take RAT exams, which I'm still not 100%. It has to do with creativity, but it's called Remote Associates Test. It's some sort of creative problem solving for business. But before the test, they had half of these students, and all of them have studied abroad because they're at the school. Half the students are told to recall and write down their experiences living abroad, which is priming their brain with thoughts of travel and multicultural experiences. And the results ended up being that the half of the students that did prime their brains by bringing up these memories of like what it was like to not just visit the place and go see the touristy things, but to live in these communities and like see, like Chris was saying, see not the touristy parts. All 50% scored. Sorry. The results were that half the students priming their brains living abroad, they all solved more than 50% more problems than the other half. The control group, yeah. So the researchers found that creative enhancement was significantly higher for those that recalled their travels.
Interesting.
And so in short, travel alone's not what's so cool. Like when we say like, yeah, you know, go to like I've seen James's pictures and your stuff you do, and it's just like when you went to like Milan, you didn't just go, okay, I'm just gonna knock out the tourists, the big five, knock out the art museum, and just like, all right, I've been to Milan. It was just like getting inside the culture and like seeing how they live and like, I feel like they talk about traveling and open-mindedness, and they don't mention that it's not it's not seeing cool buildings and stuff. It's like seeing that. And I don't want to be too crass because I won't say any countries in particular, but not being too crass. But it's just like those people that, like, you might at one day or one point of your life think like, oh man, you know, I'm not for those people to come into this country, or you know, we should go to war with those people. But then you go over there and you see like, okay, this is just Chris Nadeau, but in another country, and he's eating a different cuisine, but he's still complaining about the same crap. It's just a little bit different.
He just likes a different flavored hot wing.
He likes a different flavored hot wing. He likes dry rub instead. But I feel like and I know it can be tough, but being able to have those experiences just makes you so much more just aware, I think.
Yeah.
Beto O'Rourke 2018.
Beto. He's the man.
Beto's the man, dude.
Yeah, he's such a.
Did you watch
the
debate last night with him and Ted Cruz?
It was glorious.
It was good. Yeah.
It was you know, as a matter of fact, I'm be interested to get you guys' perspective on this. But I had a friend of mine this morning who was talking about. She was trying to figure out how the rest of her friends chose people to vote for. And her thesis was that it's getting more and more important for our generation to vote for people who are kind and personable, because we need people in Congress and the Senate and, you know, in higher positions of office who can be personable and work on both sides of the aisle to kind of shore up the rift. And so she just kind of put the question out there. She's like, interested to know like how you guys choose people to vote for. And I took some time and I thought about it, because I'd never really kind of thought about that. And honestly, I've always been the person that if I was not 100% sold on a candidate, I didn't vote for him at all, or just didn't participate. And that's kind of because I believe a vote is an endorsement of a person. And if I don't agree with the person's character or their stances or a combination of those things, then I'm not going to endorse them to work on my behalf. Even though, they are going to work on my behalf. But I think, you know, traveling kind of, back to that traveling topic, but traveling, it kind of made me realize that the world is not so very large. And I may have grown up American. I may have an American passport. If I don't like things here, I can move. And so that's kind of my fallback on like, if I don't agree with your policies, I'm not going to vote on you. I'm not going to vote for you, because there's policies somewhere in the world that I can go and be a part of that I actually agree to. So anyway, how do you guys choose your candidates to vote for? Like what's your checklist? Like, what do you do?
I think that's something we've talked about quite a bit too. And maybe not in those exact terms or words, but like I have thought about it a little bit. I mean, obviously there's checking off like what's important to me. Like obviously, like education stances are always big, due to recent family histories. Like stance on like medical reform, pharmaceutical reform is really big for me as well. And then like how we're looking at spending tax money. But a big one I've realized that's come to me is, I mean, something similar is like empathy, like how you said, and it's for that exact reason. It's like, whatever side you vote on or whatever side you lean on, like I feel like we should want somebody that's empathetic. Yeah. Like we talk about those people that need to be stern and tough to make tough decisions. But I think I think the people we vote for should be empathetic to be able to make those tough decisions, because sometimes they're too stern to the point to where they just refuse to look at something the way it is, or take the moment to just acknowledge somebody else's plight. I mean, we can look in our own country of like the Flint, Michigan still being an issue.
Yeah.
And like, and again, not playing on any side of the spectrum, but like, I can hear people talk on a daily basis, like where they can be completely open-hearted about like how awful that is. And I've heard people that just be like, doesn't affect me. It doesn't bother me. I don't care. They can just figure it out. If they didn't like it, they would move. And you bring up those things. It's like, well, maybe some of the people can't move.
That's true.
Like maybe like everything they have, everything they've put into their life is there, and maybe they just don't have the resources to move. I mean, like, I think in our field especially, it's kind of easy for us to move because, like everything we're based on is our jobs as musicians. But, it's like if, like maybe there's you're some kind of factory worker where you have a special skill that's designed towards that one area. Mm-hmm. It's like, I mean, what are you going to do if you leave?
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I think empathy is a big one that I've really come to discover recently through talks with like my wife and friends and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think on the empathy thing seems to be flipped towards the liberal side a lot. And then the conservative argument is like, oh, you're empathetic. You're weak. Like you can be bought out. Like, I feel like, then it's just like, for every good point you can bring up, someone can bring up a devil's advocate.
Yeah. So there's always a double edge to everything when it comes to politics. Like you can see the good or bad in anything the way you want it to fit your own agenda. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, I think I go by issues more or less than anything else. Mm-hmm. Like if I really like Beto O'Rourke, but if he wasn't, if he was just like, I'm pro banning, cannabis, I'd probably say like, well, I don't agree with that, but I think there's enough good points that we'll at least I'd rather make a step forward than a step backwards, I guess.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm starting to really appreciate earnestness and honesty.
Yeah.
And I think Beto is probably one of the most earnest politicians. He's just so enthusiastic about what he believes in, and he has the same message, and it's very concise, and he's very earnest about it. And that's generally a trait of honest people. And so I can disagree with someone, but I'll vote for them if they're honest, and I can see their track record and see like they're very consistent on these several issues. I'll vote for an honest politician over a dishonest one that I agree with any day, because you can argue with an honest politician. You can debate them, you can sway them, or maybe not sway them, but you can have a discourse. And as long as you know where someone stands, they're never going to backdoor you on anything. They're going to be straight up about it. And honesty is very important. But I think I'm personally open to a very growth perspective in that position, because I do recognize now that more and more we do need empathy in this country. We need people who can mend the bridges, build, put some glue in what we've broken up in this country. So, but yeah, that's thank you guys for sharing your thoughts on that.
Oh, for sure. It reminds me of there's a O'Rourke video that gets shared around a lot, where he talks about police and African American shootings, and like the video you see, if you see the whole thing, it makes perfect sense and it's fine. It's just like, oh yeah, good point. But if you see the way that the more left-leaning groups cut it up, and then you see the way the right-leaning groups cut it up, and if you only saw that information, it would probably sway you, because they do a really good job of cutting out and cutting exactly what they want. It's like if I was saying something like the first clip you see is like, I think Chris is unnecessary for this podcast. And then you see the whole clip, and then it's like, Chris is unnecessary for this podcast because, he's renewing his vows or something. It's just like, and he needs to be doing that right now instead. And it's just like, when you have the full story, like, things make so much sense. It's the same thing with the, y'all saw the picture, I'm sure. It was months back when Trump was at I think this is the UN committee, and it looked like he was folding his arms all mad, and everybody was looking at him. But
Yeah.
then you see
Yeah.
like the pictures that come before and after it, and it's just like it happened to be that. And I do not like Donald Trump in the slightest. But I mean, context is everything. Like you see the picture taken immediately after it, and it just happened to that picture ended up like that, where it looked like everyone was frowning at him and he was throwing a fit.
A big temper tantrum.
Yeah.
I will say that I hate that meme culture has become political.
Yeah.
Like
land on that for a minute.
Yeah, like this is weird that this turned into a political episode. We'll get back on point at some point, but like we've talked about this a lot, to where like that it just like the whole meme. I like the idea of a meme. People's like, here's a picture with just some random ass statistics, or like some message that's clearly just sensational, all emotional. No, like you Google it in 5 seconds, have the answer to show that it's wrong. Mm-hmm. And like, but they're everywhere, and it's not just like on the right. Like the left have it really bad too. And like, Caleb and I've talked about this before, where it's been really interesting living in East Texas, where it's obviously really conservative, and you get. I remember being like at a point where I was like, I'm just so tired of being around like these like extreme like conservative closed-minded people, to where like you can't debate them, you can't talk about like. It's just like, maybe this is mean to say, but it's just like the world's going to end. This one part of the world wants to kill everybody because you're Christian and you're white. And I was like, oh, that's not true. Come on. Yeah. And then like you get, I lived in Dallas, where it's a lot more mixed. Like there's like a healthy mix. I feel like that's why I like Dallas. It's like you can find people that are like, okay, you're really conservative, but you're still like a nice, calm, general person. Same thing with like the people on the left over there. And I've lived up here in Colorado, which has been surprisingly a little bit more of a battleground area than I thought. There's big pockets of like conservative and liberal people here, but like I like being in the art world up here. Like I'm around a lot of really liberal people, and I can finally say this with confidence, like that I've found some people that I'm like, you are too liberal. Like I'm just like to the point where I'm like, I'm tired of being around these super closed-minded liberal people. And it's just like. And so it's not specific to one side of like the spectrum. Again, like we always like each side tries to paint it. Like they all throw the same guilt on each other. Yeah. And I feel like there is a certain part where you kind of jump off the end and you're a little too far to come back. But that's something that I kind of miss about that whole Dallas lifestyle. Is just like it's either people were like they were conservative or liberal, but they were still open-minded and just nice and didn't like attack you with it. Or they just didn't care, so it never came up. And I think that's what I miss more than anything sometimes. Yeah. But
it's really interesting that people get so polarized. Like you're either on one side or you're on the other side. And it's just like if you talk about health, man, this is a great episode. We've gotten so political. It's like if you're on health insurance, Chris was talking about pre-existing conditions. I'm just like, yeah, that's like a really good point. But then at the same time, I had this thing of like, I know my dad, stepmom, and sister don't have health insurance because they're small business owners, and they're in that weird spot where health insurance is now too expensive. They can't afford it. And it's just like, oh man, there's just so many. It's not like a simple this or that. There's just so many factors in play. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we just got to hit the point to where I'll realize that no matter who we elect, who and whatever office, like there's never going to be a time where everybody's happy.
Oh yeah.
And like I can even feel like no matter who I elect personally, there's never going to be a time where I 100% agree with them always. Yeah. Because we're still electing people.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's true. Mad Max Thunderdome. Mad Max Thunderdome's happening.
I'm ready. I've watched that enough. I'm so ready. I just want there to be a combination of a little guy and a big guy that actually go around calling themselves Master Blaster. So, to get back onto the musical and art side of this, I did want to ask James, like going back to how much you've traveled and the people you've met and the sights you've seen and stuff, like how, in a way, we've kind of asked this, but personally, like from where you were with music beforehand, how does that change you as either a performer or a listener after your travels?
Okay. Ooh, I'm gonna have to repeat that question one more time because I want to make sure I lean into it the right direction.
So thinking back to like before you had really done traveling, like traveled much, like what like the kind of style, like maybe as a pianist even, or even just a listener, like whether it's classical or even kind of pop culture music, like what you enjoyed playing and listening to beforehand, like has traveling changed like your perspectives of like performance or listening afterwards?
Okay. And will we limit this to classical music or world music or
whatever you want?
Okay. Well, I think my case is really unique because my first trip abroad was for piano, and the network of people that I became involved with my first trip led to 4, 5, 6 other trips. So I dare say about half of my travels have been to these people, with these people, through these people. And that was the musical summer that I went to in France the first time. And I was getting ready to give up piano altogether. And then it was on a whim, last minute decision one day. I just went into a piano lesson. I hadn't practiced all week, and I needed to take up time with conversation. So I told my instructor, I was like, Dr. Sanchez, I said, Dr. Sanchez, I want to go abroad and I want to study abroad with piano this summer, do a master class. And he was like, you want to do a master class? And I was like, yeah, I want to do a master class. I was like, what do I need to do? And he spent the next 45 minutes telling me what I needed to do to go on to a master class. And so I was consumed. It wasn't abroad. It was Brevard. I wanted to go to Brevard. And so I spent the next couple of weeks like with that as my goal. I prepared really well for those next 2 lessons. And then I realized that Brevard probably wasn't going to happen because I wasn't good enough. And I was like, do you know of any other places that I could go? And then that's when the international travel came up. And he suggested this camp that was in France. I went to this camp in France, played table tennis with a guy who was my instructor for those 2 weeks. And me and the guy that I played table tennis with, we became best friends. The next year, he invited me to come, and I had just gotten my first camera. He invited me to come and photograph the entire music festival. I went, photographed the music festival. 2 years later, he bought his own camera, and he asked me to show him how to use it while we were at camp. And I agreed. I showed him how to use it. He's now an astrophotographer, and he photographs the night sky. I went to Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Iceland with him, and we photographed the northern lights and the galaxies. And so that's 6 countries that I've been to because of that one experience in France. And so yeah. How has it changed my listening? How has it changed my playing? Well, it's changed my playing because I was going to give up piano altogether before I went to France. And I went to France and I met these wonderful people. I heard real piano music for the first time in my life, like no mistakes. It was the first time I'd ever heard playing that had no technical mistakes. And when I heard that for the first time, I knew, like, if this is what you want to do, this is what it's going to look like. This is what it needs to sound like.
My mic's muted.
And it changed my outlook. I'm sorry, I'm kind of going all over the place now, but it really changed my outlook on what perfection was and what it took to get there. So my listening became different. I came back to the U.S. I was listening to classical music differently. Like, what does it take to be perfect? My practice was different. It was all about being technically perfect. I had the emotion, but I never had the technical proficiency. And so my pursuit of that technical proficiency really kind of led me to business, because I realized that there's no way that with the education that I have right now and with the limited amount of resources that I have here in the U.S., that I'm going to be able to be that technically perfect unless I move to like Moscow or move to Germany and study with one of those really, really evil professors that throws things at you all the time.
Thank you.
So it discouraged me, but it was a positive discouragement that led me to something better. Traveling really does affect my listening. I talked a little bit about the classical music side of things. It discouraged me out of a career. Traveling discouraged me out of a career in classical music, but it encouraged me to find other things. And it encouraged me to keep traveling. it also introduced me to world music. And when I say world music, I mean any other music besides classical. I listened to nothing but classical and jazz music before I went to Europe the first time. That was my entire repertoire. I liked a little bit of country western because I grew up in the country, but I didn't even really listen to that. But after traveling the first time, and I mean, you got to have a soundtrack. You got to have a soundtrack. And there's not, I mean, jazz isn't the perfect soundtrack for being on a train by yourself for 8.5 hours while you're in the middle of, France or something. It doesn't work. You got to have something else. And I found a lot of old rock, and found even some kind of new age underground indie music, stuff like that would remind me of home. And while I was by myself, and I fell in love with it, and be listening to it abroad, and my memories, they kind of attach themselves to music. I'd listen to it while I was abroad. It would remind me of home. When I'd get home, and I'd get home like travel sick, or I'd kind of feel like get a little antsy, I would listen to the music that I listened to abroad, and it would remind me of an adventure that I had. So it really did affect my traveling. My traveling really did affect my listening. It affected my career. And I say that I told that entire story like it ran me away from a career. I actually still play. So I'm working on a program now, and that hopefully I'll get to present next month. I still play, but I'm a lot happier now when I play. I don't play because I have to survive. I play because I enjoy it, and it's been a long time since that's happened in my life. So yeah, I guess that's the answer to my question, if that made any sense at all.
No, that made great sense.
Yeah,
all over the place.
That is awesome.
I would like to point out one little ironic statement that he said. Being from Texas and as percussionists,
I know what you're about to say, and I totally agree.
About not having the technical background.
I just had that in my head.
I was sort of thinking, I was like, man, that's such a funny statement, because if anybody ever thinks about Texas percussion,
it's opposite.
Technique. It's just technique.
Oh wow.
And proficiency and stuff, and
they can get around the instrument, but there's no music happening.
Oh wow.
I also always disagree with that statement, though. I've seen some incredible musicians in high school levels still at Texas. Now, I do agree that there's programs that have had too much focus on the metronome or the robotic quality, but I mean, I've still seen, I think of a student that I had at Plano West that I watched him play variations on Japanese children's songs for marimba, and which is not a high school level repertoire piece. I mean, it's advanced, and so but he played it great. He actually had phrasing. He had listened. He had studied listening to Keiko Abe and all these people, and he played with great musical quality. And and I still had kids that were playing Blues for Gilbert on vibraphone, and were it was perfect time the entire time. I was all right, you can play a little bit more, but I've gotten to the arguments with faculty up here at CSU before, where they've made those Texas bands, those wind ensembles, everything's like computer perfect, and I'm like, no, I've been in wind ensembles that aren't computer perfect, and it's still great.
Now I will add though that my situation might be unique to me and unique to piano,
right?
Because in the piano world, at least in Texas, I had never heard perfect playing before I went to Europe, and I was sitting in concerts with kids from Moscow Conservatory who've competed in the Chopin International Competition, and me having never competed in any type of competition before in my life, to be playing in a room full of people listening to me who were Chopin level ready or Tchaikovsky competition level ready. There's it's not, I'm not even on their spectrum, and they were perfect. I mean, I'd never heard perfect playing before in my life, and that was the first time that I'd ever heard that. So it was unique to me. I do agree that Texas percussionists are beasts. I mean, I've
not you.
I've been a product of the listening to you guys and just watching y'all's dedication to you. craft. It's just always something. But yeah.
Yeah.
That's that.
Man. Yeah, you might have felt like that went all over the place, but that was really awesome. Yeah, that was great.
Glad to have shared.
Yeah, for sure. I just got one last little item that I just wanted to talk about. And mainly because, so this is a person that I feel like in the past year, this person's name has come up almost on a weekly basis for me. Like between, between I listen to Joe Rogan's podcast a lot.
Okay.
But between his podcast, Neil deGrasse Tyson's Star Talk podcast, there's been books at local bookstores here and all across America. There's new biographies. There's a new Netflix documentary that just came out probably, I guess it was maybe last May. It's been out for a little while now. The At Percussion podcast, which my professor Casey runs, he's mentioned it. And just others, just people keep bringing this person up. But it's this actress / inventor, Hedy Lamarr. And I know Casey likes to listen to this podcast when it comes out. So if you're listening, yes, I did not steal your information. I did my own research. I did not copy paste yours. But just a little bit of background on her. So she's a really famous actress. Some of her movies, Come Live With Me, Samson and Delilah, All Gears, Boomtown, Ziegfeld Girl, Ecstasy. They're older movies, but for those people that are into old movies, they're like, yeah, Hedy Lamarr is like a standard. But she was born in 1914, Vienna, Austria, under her original name, Hedwig Eva Maria Keisler. She studied ballet and piano as a child before she went to acting school, eventually dropping out to be Max Reinhardt's production assistant, who is a very famous director that a lot of people have probably heard his name directing a lot of old-time movies. Her first large role was in a Czech film titled Ecstasy, which was pretty hardcore for the time because she appeared nude, which was mostly unheard of for that time of history. She married before she was 20 to a man 30 years older than her named Friedrich Mandel, who was actually an arms dealer in Vienna, weapons and munitions. He would actually go on to sell munitions and aircrafts to the Nazis in the upcoming war.
Man.
But Lamarr was basically required to be more or less arm candy for Mendel's parties, his meetings, his general business. Like he was the big bad dude selling the guns, and she was just there to show off her good looks because she is very good-looking woman. Somebody's a little buzzy. His business partners actually turned out, like I said, to be Hitler and Mussolini. They later bought from him. But what Lamarr lacked in traditional education, she gained a great deal of knowledge in military tech, science, mathematics, and most notably, these issues of math turned into her understanding of radio frequencies and their applications to wartime usage, such as torpedoes, jamming, and interference. So upon her disgust with her husband's behavior and his endeavors he was taking with the Nazis, and his general just controllingness of her, she disguised herself as one of her maids and escaped to Paris in 1937, where she eventually divorced him. But she went on to London and was signed under the Young brand, which is now MGM, under the name Hedy Lamarr, which is the name she went by for the rest of her career outside of when she married. She married, I think, 5 other times. They all divorced. She divorced them. So her acting career rose very quickly. She had a natural passion and interest in math, in inventing and tinkering. And then when she moved into Hollywood in 1940, she became friends with her neighbor, George Antheil, who, if you're a percussion listener, you probably know the name George Antheil. You know him from his piece Ballet Mécanique, which was originally composed to accompany a Dadaist post-Cubist art film under the same name, Ballet Mécanique, by Fernand Léger. The score for this piece calls for 16 player pianos in 4 parts. So there's 4 player pianos to a part, 2 regular pianos, 2 2 regular pianos, 2 xylophones, 7 electric bells, 3 airplane propellers, sirens, 4 bass drums, and tam-tam. So, so for the time, if you think about the inconsistency of manufacturing, the most difficult part was getting 16 player pianos where the player piano roll was perfect and you could sync them up to start and end at the same time. It's really hard.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So singing those was basically impossible. But in addition to composing, Antheil also became a syndicated advice columnist and author of a book on romance and endocrinology, specifically study of hormones and their relations to romance. So the rumor, this isn't a hard fact on this one, but the rumor is that while they were neighbors, Lamar and Antheil, Lamar approached him for endocrinology advice, and then the conversation evolved into music, and then that evolved into Lamar's military background and mathematics interests. And then they began working on this idea of torpedo guidance systems with frequencies that are constantly changing. So if you know about early well, still today they still work on frequencies. We just use the transistor and electronics instead of radio frequencies. But basically, to make it really, really simple, say I'm at frequency, the submarine's at frequency 5, and the torpedo is set to frequency 5, and we're shooting this torpedo that's guided to the enemy. So for the enemy to jam that torpedo and send it off course, they just have to go through the frequencies until they find the one that it's tuned to. So when they find frequency 5, that will divert it and stop it from locking on. So basically, the idea they came up with is to use player piano rolls. So you have 2 player piano rolls that change the frequency constantly as they play. So you press start on the submarine and the torpedo at the same time, and as opposed to having just frequency 5, now the torpedo's going 5, 6, 10, 8, 21, 3, and it's making it way harder to jam because they don't know what frequency to jam because it's always changing.
Yeah.
So they came up with this patent, and a similar thing came up with some other German engineers, and the U.S. worked on it some in World War II, as well as Nikola Tesla also had a similar idea, but this was the first patent that was like notable. So ultimately, the device was deemed too bulky and not feasible for practical use because you think there's a lot of moving parts. There's a high likelihood that it's going to fail, possibly.
Yeah.
But in 1957, the engineers at Sylvania Electronic Systems Divisions adopted this concept. They took their patent and built upon it using these transistors and the electronics, which is what evolved into what we use now. But basically, what is really, really cool about this is this concept of what they call frequency hopping, changing frequencies very constantly to not be able to lock one in.
Yeah.
This patent was the precursor to Wi-Fi, GPS, and Bluetooth in cell phone satellite use. So if you think about if all 3 of us, James, Chris, and I, are sitting next to each other, and we all make separate phone calls to separate people, our phones are doing frequency hopping at like the millionth level. So it's shooting signals up and then back down. So if we didn't have this frequency hopping device that Head Lamar helped create, our cell phone calls would be interrupted, and I would be able to hear Chris's call, Chris would hear James's, and they'd be all intermingled. So it's really cool that they did that. Antheil unfortunately died in '59. Lamar went on to continue filming and inventing. She died in 2000 in Florida, and she kind of was only known for her acting, and the cool inventing and her interest in math was like a footnote. It was always by the wayside. But she's randomly with this surgence of like there's the Women's March, and there's all these great things happening, and the Me Too movements, obviously. But now Hedy Lamarr is becoming this like unknown figure that was always there, that's just kind of being uncovered. But she has a documentary, or they have a documentary about her on Netflix called Bombshell, which goes through her whole life. That's where most of this info's from. But she has a really unfortunate quote, but she probably doesn't know how famous she's becoming, where she says, "My face has been," because she was, again, very attractive as an actress. She says, "My face has been my misfortune. It's a mask I cannot remove. I must live with it, and I curse it."
Wow.
Because she was always favored for her physical features when she was actually like a mathematical genius and like helped create like things we use constantly on a day-to-day. But
wow.
Yeah, that's Hedy Lamarr in a nutshell. Definitely the Netflix documentary and her bio and the other books do it more justice, but that's kind of the Cliff Notes version.
I'm gonna have to see this. I'm writing it down now. Bombshell.
Bombshell, yeah, it's really good, and
this.
it's not long. I think it was like 90 minutes or so. It's it's pretty good. But yeah, she was
Thank
cool.
you for sharing that.
No problem. I need to hop on the train soon because otherwise people are gonna be like, you stole it from that percussion again. Just like, no. I did my own research, I promise. But
yeah.
Just happened to be off of Casey's notes.
No, I didn't use them. He'll blame me. We'll have like a studio class, and he'll be like, "Hey, I heard you're trying to get after me or something." I don't know. It's always funny.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, James, do you have any like albums, books, film, anything like that you're into right now that's like really sticking out in your head?
Oh man, yeah. Well, I have artists. Right now, I'm really into Novo Amor. I'm not pronouncing that correct. It's New Love or New Heart is the translation. But yeah, man, I don't know what it is. He's got this song called Anchor that if you get a chance to watch the video, do watch the video.
Yeah.
The video is the video kind of patterned it after like a Scandinavian myth called the Selkie. About like a if a fisherman were to pick up a Selkie skin, then the skin would turn into a lady, or the seal would turn into a lady, and it would become his wife essentially. It's a Scandinavian myth. But the video it's kind of patterns itself behind this myth, and it is beautiful. It's such a perfect pairing between lyrics, musical quality, and story. Like it's beautiful. Anyway, that's kind of what I've been into lately. I've really been digging that artist, and I've got a couple of other artists that I've been listening to, but nothing that really kind of comes close to the quality of that artist. So
I just looked them up. And Novo Amor, is that it?
Yeah, that's him.
Cool.
I've been digging them. I've also been reading some Plato.
Nice.
The Republic. I found a group of Episcopalians, actually, a bunch of guys here in Tyler that I've been kind of hanging out with. They're all like extremely intellectual, and about 8 or 9 of them, they actually all have the same tattoo right here. It's an American Spirit tattoo. They all smoke American Spirits, and they all have the same tattoo right here on their wrists. It's the funniest like little bro club that I've ever been introduced to. But when they have discussions, like they go down to the metaphysics of an issue or of a problem, and like they'll cite philosophers when they're, and I've just been so impressed with the way that they hold a debate or a conversation. So they kind of inspired me to read some Plato. So I've been working my way through the Republic lately, and so yeah, music, no more, and reading the Republic and the Phaedrus. So yeah, that's me.
Cool, dude.
What about you guys?
I've jumped right back into the Hiatus Coyote band pool.
Oh yeah, it's good.
I'm just like I hadn't listened to them. I hadn't listened to them in a while, and then it came on in the store the other day, and then it was just all it took, and that's all I've been listening to again. Every now and then I do try to like find what people are listening to in other countries, and like I found this guy, and I don't actually know how popular he is over there, but this guy named Shugo Tokumaru, I believe his name is, Japanese. And to me, he just sounds like a low-key version of like a Japanese Paul Simon, maybe.
Interesting.
It's just
interesting.
It's been really interesting to listen to, and his music videos have been really fun to watch too. They're like really, you'd have to look it up sometime. I can see if I can send it to you, but I've enjoyed them. They're very upbeat, happy feeling, and I don't know. Maybe I just need a little bit of that in my life lately. But it's I really enjoy listening to it. It's fun.
Yeah.
And I've been listening to I just got into this like the other day. This Volcano Choir. It's the same. Yeah, it's the same dude that Bon Iver. It's the same guy.
Oh yeah, keep going.
No, it's just so
Justin
interesting.
Vernon?
Yeah, Justin Vernon. It's just so interesting because it's like it's the same guy. It's just like he wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he just wanted to start a new band basically that was similar but had a different. I don't know, a different spirit, and it's just it's good.
Have you heard Justin Vernon's Big Red Machine album?
I have not.
Whenever you hang up this, you got to go straight there. Because I'm sorry, I should have mentioned him before. Dude, like, you're a percussionist. What he does with time in this entire album is just fascinating. He really shows out here in the Big Red Machine album. That's all that and the Novo Amor is literally all I listen to. But Justin Vernon, he hurts people with that new album. He hurts people.
Oh man,
yeah,
dude, that's hit. That and I've been listening to Nico Muley's music a lot. He's a contemporary classical composer, but it's I don't know. It's his language is just so different.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's all for me. I haven't been watching or I haven't been reading anything except for school related things.
Yeah.
Dissertation.
Shh, hush. We don't speak of that. We don't speak
When's
of
it due?
The next 10 years.
Yeah, within 8 years. Oh man, 8 years and 7 months. Somewhere in there. It's fine. But no, I've just been doing that. But well, dude, James, thanks for hanging. This is great.
Hey, man, thank y'all. I appreciate it.
Yeah. We'll have to do. Yeah, next time we're all in Texas, we need to do the hang again. That was.
Oh yeah.
That was good.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, yeah. For anybody listening, I guess this will be the 24th if you're listening. But thanks for listening, and we'll catch y'all next time on episode number 8, getting close to that Big 10.